Forget about what everyone has said. Forget about what the lawyers have said, the experts, the pundits. Forget about all of it. Why didn't Barack Obama say anything? Why? No one can answer that very simple question. If Barack Obama knew that Donald Trump didn't in any way collude with Russia to win the 2016 election, why didn't he say anything? Why? Why not? And why can't anyone, even his own supporters at CNN, answer that simple question? Could the answer possibly be that they didn't want Donald Trump to get away with it? They wanted people to think that he colluded with the Russians. And Barack Obama knew that all along.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts.
That was DNI Tulsi Gabbard today. After the election, Barack was still president for almost 3 months, but he never said anything about Donald Trump being innocent. Instead, he did the opposite. In a very slick beer summit, you can keep your doctor very Obama way, he subtly pushed the lie. And while Barack set all that in motion behind the scenes, publicly he never let on. He was just as slick and smooth as always. He was even there to help Donald Trump. Remember that?
Some of the organizational issues in setting up the White House. We talked about foreign policy. We talked about domestic policy. And as I said last night, my number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful.
And sabotage the incoming president. Did I add that? It took Barack just 1 day to put out this statement on Monday claiming none of these accusations were true, but he never did that for Donald Trump over the course of 3 months or even after he left office. He never put out a statement stating unequivocally that Donald Trump never colluded with Russia. But yesterday, he put out a statement professing his innocence, saying, quote, "These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the documents issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate the votes." Well, isn't that just stupendous, Barack Obama? But if that's true, why didn't you say anything like that at the time? Why didn't you set the record straight on December 9th, a month after the election, when the New York Times reported that Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in the election? On the same day, the Washington Post, by some miraculous coincidence of happenstance, had the exact same story. This is why they won Pulitzer Prizes, by the way. Secret CIA assessment says Russia was trying to help Trump win the White House. Why didn't you say anything then, Barack? And why did you say this 1 week later on December 16th?
If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him?
Barack Obama never set the record straight on purpose, which we believe to be an act of pure evil. A sitting president working to sabotage an incoming president. That is evil. And we say that because the day before the story broke in the New York Times and the Washington Post, on December 8th, the day before, President Obama's daily brief that a president gets every day contained a document that stated this, quote, "We assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure." Why didn't Barack Obama put the brief down, run, sprint into the briefing room right then, that day, and set the record straight? There is too much on the line, but Barack wanted to play politics. Why didn't Barack say anything? Because that's not the story that Barack wanted to tell. He wanted to tell a much different story, something his own director of national intelligence eventually admitted to.
If it weren't for President Obama, we might not have done the intelligence community assessment that we did that set off a whole sequence of events which are still unfolding today, notably Special Counsel Mueller's investigation. President Obama is responsible for that, and it was he who tasked us to do that intelligence community assessment in the first place.
James Clapper. We'll get to him. Barack Obama wanted to tell his version of the story. And 14 days before Donald Trump would take the oath of office, the Obama administration made it official. With a 25-page report that read, quote, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in the 2016 election aimed at the election, we further assess that Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. After that, the floodgates opened. It was Russia, Russia, Russia all day, every day, except that some people weren't buying it. But it's exactly what Barack Obama wanted. We also think it's interesting that the media had no problem reporting the fake story in 2016, but they won't report the real story today. Meaning if it came from Barack Obama, the legacy media will report it. But if it comes from Donald Trump, they don't say a word. They cut away.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason.
That's why people hate CNN. You're exactly right, Tom. We're going to cut away from the Director of National Intelligence before she implicates our beloved Saint Barack Obama in a crime and go now to Thomas Smith, who's got to look at that forecast. Thomas, what do you got for us? That's why people hate CNN. The truth tonight is that Barack Obama has been implicated in a crime that is bigger than the fake crime ever was. Barack Obama is the real Russian asset. He weaponized Russia against an American president, and now he's scared. And he should be. He's probably sitting in his living room right now at his $12 million Martha's Vineyard mansion. Barack Obama is scared, probably for the first time in his life. He was president of the United States, meaning everyone worked for him. John Brennan, James Clapper, John Kerry, Andrew McCabe, James Comey, Joe Biden. If Barack Obama wanted something done when he was president, it got done. And we don't say any of this because we don't like Barack Obama. We don't. We say it because it's the truth. Barack was in charge. In 2016, Democrats accused Donald Trump of colluding with our enemy, with Russia, to win the election, which never made a whole lot of sense to me. You're telling me that Donald Trump, the billionaire businessman best known for hosting The Apprentice and the Miss America pageant, somehow convinced Vladimir Putin in Russia to help him win the White House 10 years ago, and then Vladimir Putin played along, and people across America bought this hook, line, and sinker? Has anyone ever thought to ask why Vladimir Putin would want Trump over Hillary? Wouldn't he want Hillary, the known entity at the time, not the guy that nobody knows anything about? Again, think about what they did to Donald Trump. A year ago today, he was in a courtroom in New York City. 4 indictments. 90 felony charges. They tried to bankrupt him. They raided his home. They took his mugshot. They tried to put him in jail. They wish he was in jail, but he's not, because something happened in November that Barack Obama never expected. Donald Trump won the election. And now, the new Director of National Intelligence, a former Democrat herself, by the way, is going to make sure the world meets the real Barack Obama for the first time.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment.
Tulsi Gabbard just referred Barack Obama to the Department of Justice, which is exactly what 80 million people voted for in November. But Barack never thought it would come to this. When he led a campaign to quietly sabotage an incoming president, none of them ever thought Donald Trump would return to the White House. Not in a million years. That brash former NBC TV host, the street guy from Queens, but they were all wrong. And if there really is any justice in this world, and we think there is, something tells me it's coming for Barack Hussein Obama.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.